Hey, what's up? It is Doug Cunnington here. I'm from Niche Site Project. I'm going to tell you about 3 things that I learned running a services business. I ran an SEO guest posting services business for about 10 months. I'm going to tell you my 3 biggest takeaways from that. A services business. I can now hear myself talking on the computer so that I know that it's working. And again, if you're just joining up, I'm Doug Cunnington from Niche Site Project. I'm going to talk about 3 things that I learned while running a services business. It was, it was pretty interesting overall. I did this for about 10 months. It was basically, like a 7-day startup style services business where luckily I had a bit of an audience to, launch to right away from Niche Site Project. I was able to, send an email out to my email list and, get started pretty quickly. And it was literally one of those deals where I had customers pretty quickly and, I was able to ramp it up. So if you're just joining, you could say hi in the chat. I would really appreciate that. What's up, Nick? I see you're on. I will mention that one of the frequent viewers, a super fan, if you will, David from Tel Aviv, asked this question a few weeks ago. I didn't get to go too in depth, but today I'll go a little bit longer and talk about the 3 things that I learned running this 7-day startup style services business. And just a little background, the 7-day startup is a book by Dan Norris, and for a period of time, I guess like shortly after it came out and for about a year, I was really interested in the idea. And I am trying to remember, I think Dan Norris founded the company, I think it's WP Curve, is that right? David, what's up? And I'm sure David or Nick can correct me if I'm wrong. I think Dan Norris wrote, started WP Curve, which is basically a services business with like a monthly fee, and they do WordPress, like all-inclusive work. They do pieces of work, an unlimited amount of work, in like 45-minute chunks. So they do specific things. There's stuff that's in scope and out of scope, but overall, Dan wrote this book. He launched the service in 7 days, right? He launched the service, he figured it out, and then adjusted until it worked, and made it something powerful. And I think he's doing really well now. So I'll wait just a couple minutes here, and I'll keep burning time. I see we have about 10 people on. Please say hello. I did experiment a little bit today with what I was sharing to help people find this video. So I have been sharing on Facebook. So I'm sharing like in a group that I have, and let's see, I shared it on the Niche Site Project page. I shared it on Google+, which I'm not sure if people use that very much anymore. And I also, a new addition, I shared it on LinkedIn. So there may actually be like people that I know professionally that may accidentally find this, which will be interesting because I haven't really posted much on LinkedIn. But one thing that I've noticed is that project managers, software developers, and other people that worked in my general industry of IT are very interested in what I'm doing. So I should probably do that. And again, if you're just joining up, I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to cover the 3 things that I learned in the services business that I ran. And then Nick is very good to remind me that I should mention, if you're here and you have the ability to click the thumbs up, please do it. It helps people find the video, and it's a good thing to do. All right, so let's get to it. I'll tell you a little bit about why I started the services business, and it actually is related to the corporate job that I had. So 2 years ago, to the week, right? So I was laid off from my job that I had for about 9 years or so. And I mean, I was on a pretty stable project. I was billable. Things were pretty good. And I'll just leave it at that. I was laid off. That happens sometimes. They cited like organizational changes and just, a downturn in the market. They probably said 3 other things too, but they laid me off. I received a severance package, which was good. And from there, I was like, oh, I need to make sure this side project ramps up like in a serious way, because at the time I was still trying to recover from Google penalties for, essentially it was gray hat activities. So I looked at some of the skills that I was developing. One of them was around, guest posting. And if you're not familiar with it, guest posting is where you approach a blogger or someone with a website and you ask if you could post there. Usually you have a link or some sort of way for people to find you or navigate back to your website from that guest post. You're sort of trying to like build your audience through other people's platforms. Additionally, from an SEO perspective, you get a link from a site in your niche, hopefully, and that helps your rankings in general. So I knew that I had a skill around guest posting because I was working on that for a couple of my websites actually. So that was sort of the top choice, and I knew that there really weren't very many service providers doing that. Yet one of the most popular topics on Niche Site Project was around guest posting, how to get white hat links, and there were big SEO pros talking about it, like Ryan Stewart, Brian Dean from Backlinko, and several other people. Now, I knew that there was a gap, right? So I came from a gray hat area, and a lot of gray hat people that use private blog networks wanted to use some sort of a less risky linking strategy, and they wanted to do guest posts, but they also didn't want to do the work, right? So it's a common thing. Like they just want to outsource stuff. They want to outsource it and just get away from the work and just manage things, which is a beautiful thought, but it's a lot harder in practice, I can tell you. And the very difficult thing is this particular model of like guest posting. It's very easy for someone to oversell what they're doing and then charge a lot and then not deliver on what they said they were going to do. So basically, it's really easy for scammers to charge people a lot of money and then not deliver. Additionally, it's really hard to, correlate back good results or bad results back to the service provider that's doing guest post. There's a million excuses, which we won't get into here, but let's say I hired someone to do guest posts for me. They got 5 of them. They look kind of okay, but nothing happens. My rankings don't go up. I don't get more traffic on my site. They could say that it's my fault somehow, and maybe it is. It's really hard to prove positive or negative results with SEO because there are too many excuses, and many excuses that are actually kind of valid. So as I was looking at things that I could launch and looking at my skills, gaps in the market, and what I knew my audience was interested in, it was obvious that I could launch a guest posting service. And I remember talking with one of my friends, Lewis, and it was just like an obvious thing dropped out of the sky, and I had no clue that I even had the option to run a services business. But Lewis and I, had talked about doing that sort of stuff before, and we were really, impressed with what Dan Norris was doing. And the whole model of the 7-day startup is cool. Like, you launch fast, you figure out if things are working very quickly. I mean, it's 7 days, and he outlines in the book, day 1, figure out your idea. name it. Day 2, launch the website, put up a landing page. Day 3, and I'm probably mixing this up, but there's 7 days, and I think I already had like the majority of it done. So really all I had to do was launch to my email list, which I already had, right? So I had a few thousand people that I could email and probably get 1 or 2 customers. And I launched in, a couple days, ran the service, and now I'll finally tell you about the 3 things that I learned. And while I'm going to drink a sip of coffee here. I see Leo joined up. Awesome. If you're just joining up and you haven't said hello, say hello and let me know where you're from. I'm highly caffeinated today. Okay, so number 1, I didn't like running a services business. That's one of the number 1 things that I learned. So there are definitely things I could have tweaked, but I really didn't like working with the clients very much. There's some good clients, there's some bad clients, and I'll mention a couple things that I could have tweaked, but a lot of times the clients were demanding in a negative way. So like they were demanding in, I believe, somewhat unreasonable way. And the thing that I maybe could have corrected was raising prices sooner. So I'll come back to that a little bit in the next point, but generally just running the services business, I didn't think it was fun. When I launched, I was doing, basically all the work myself as I was trying to, figure out the processes. And I mean, I'm a project manager by trade. I realized that I want to automate stuff and I want to put systems around it, but you have to figure out how to do like the nuts and bolts first before you can put any sort of, rigid process around something. And then, I say rigid, but really you need to have a flexible process because a lot of times, especially in the services business, things may be tweaked. But in my head, I was like, okay, I want to be able to scale this. So I need to have a pretty predictable model on how I'm going to do this, because if I want this to work, I need to be able to scale this in a way so that I am the manager and I'm hiring people, training them individually to do the same tasks that I was doing, and hopefully, hire a few people that specialized in different areas to replace what I was doing. So in theory, that would work. And I do believe, I think I mentioned in the description, this could and should be like a multiple 6-figure business. I'll just mention, like, there were a few months that I made, there were a few months where I made like $800, right, when I was first launching it. But on some good months, I made, $5,000 to $7,000 from this service. That's really good. That's like full-time income for people. So if you know how to do something, obviously that people value, you can command, high dollar for it. Now, you may not be able to go right out of the gates and do that. And I'll tell you the second point. If you don't have your positioning right, people will treat your service as a commodity. So I fell into that trap. People were beating me up on price, and here's why. I was advertising. I was trying to work with people that were used to gray hat, like private blog network links, and generally they were used to like lower prices. At the time, prices were sort of dropping in that area. So I would go advertise my prices, which were lowish. I think they were probably like $100 to $150 per guest post. So pretty cheap generally. And they would come in and tell me how they can get cheaper prices and better results somewhere else. And, I just acted professionally and I said, hey, if it's not for you, that's cool. And then just moved on. And that actually happened quite a bit. I did get a few customers like right off the bat, and people noticed that I was doing that work and I was not a jerk about, when people were rude to me, I wasn't rude back. I was very nice to them. And people took note of that and then recommended me when they knew someone was asking about it. So over time, just through some marketplaces on Facebook, I was able to just build a reputation around, providing the service, generally being professional and nice, and then I wasn't like succumbing to the people that were negative or rude to me. But overall, they were trying to treat it as a commodity. And early on, I needed the clients and I wanted the work and I wanted to like build a rapport with people and build a reputation, get more experience. So I negotiated some and I took some deals that were, I didn't make any money on it, but that brings me to the third thing is I learned so much about guest posting during that period. I got dozens of guest posts for like various clients. About half of them were niche sites, half of them were like SEOs that were working with individual businesses and they knew how to do like Gray Hat and other SEO, but they needed guest posts or they needed more guest posts. So they hired me to come in. And by working with multiple different niches, different types of sites, I learned like what worked and what didn't work. I definitely ran several campaigns where out of the gates, like it was awesome. I got twice as many guest posts. I was able to upsell some of my clients because I got more guest posts than what they asked for, and I was like, well, hey, I can get you. You ordered 5, but I can get you 5 more. I already have like 4 of them in the hopper, so you just let me know and we can do it. If not, then I'll get the links myself, but whatever you want to do. And of course, if they have it handed to them, maybe I gave them a tiny discount or something, but they usually went for it like 90% of the time. And the other part is just the sheer volume of the guest posts that I was able to get. I learned, things that worked and things that didn't work. So when I talk about, if you look at the previous like 7 live streams, I probably referenced a few times like getting links to affiliate posts. Like I know it works because I've done it a lot for different sites all the time. Like it works. It doesn't work 100% of the time, but when people tell me, hey, it's too hard to get links to the posts that I actually want to rank, well, they just need to try harder. I mean, everything's hard, right? Like if it was easy, then everyone would do it. So, okay. So overall, the 3 things that I learned, and I'll hop over to the questions. Actually, let's look real quick. So David clicked the like. I appreciate that. So if other people have the ability to click the like button, the thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. So David, early question is, have I ever tried such a service? And what do you mean, David? Do you mean like, did I try and run the service? Obviously, I'm talking about the one, so I think you know that. And Leo, what's up? I may have said hi to you, but I'm not 100% sure. Let's see. The website of the service was on Niche Site Project. So it was like Niche Site Project / guest posting. And I just didn't want to like launch anything else, anything separate. I just wanted it to be in the umbrella that was already there. And then David also asked, what coffee is it? I think this is like 3 or so. They haven't all been this full, but it was definitely strong today. And I see Dami's on. What's up? Thanks for joining. Okay, and I'll do a quick recap. So I learned that I didn't like running a services business so much. Honestly, at the end of the day, if I would have scaled it, right, number one, I don't think scaling guest posting is super effective. So I know a lot of people will disagree, but my personal experience is that scaling guest posting to like a lot of different customers wouldn't be very scalable. It would end up being very like redundant. There would end up being like footprints because of the nature of being able to get the guest post in a specific way. We would probably end up leaving or trying to get guest posts on many of the same sites over and over again. I couldn't crack that puzzle exactly. So like when you scale it out to, hey, I need to get 10 clients paying me $1,000 a month, that would be a little trouble for me, at least the way I was doing it. So that was one issue. The other part is, let's say I figured that problem out and it was not an issue. There was just an unlimited number of sites that I can get guest post on, and I knew the process to do it. And I hired 5 people to do the work for me. Well, at that point, I'm a manager and I'm running a company, and I've just created a job for myself. Not ideal. Yes, I could leverage my time by hiring other people and raising rates and so on, but from my perspective, running a services business, usually, right, at least the way I was envisioning it, is not going to be like a passive situation. Could I like hire a business manager and then be a founder and like step away from it? Probably, right? So probably could do that, but I basically didn't want to grow the company that big. I just didn't want to. So it was just a personal preference from that area. So that was number one. I didn't like it for various reasons. Number two, people treated the service as a commodity. That was my fault as far as like positioning. I will mention that I eventually raised the prices by like 4 to 5x. And when I did that, you have better clients, but it took time. It took me developing the reputation that I was providing a good service, and then like things happened. A lot of better things happened. So positioning better early, it could have like alleviated that, but at the same time, it's really hard to, like when you're first starting, you have to take some gigs that you wouldn't want to take normally. So that's just the way it works. And then the third thing, the positive thing, is I learned faster. So if you want to like learn how to do something, if you could figure out how to, charge people, you need to have like a base skill set, right? Like I'd already gotten like a lot of guest posts in the past, so I knew that I could like do it, and I just needed to, have some customers and work with them, work out some kinks, and like I could do the service. So if you could figure out how to freelance, provide a service while you're like learning the nuances, because I could do the basic guest posting process, but when you repetitively do the same process, like you learn a lot more because there's more failure points that you're exposed to. Maybe I got lucky early on in certain areas, and maybe I figured out a couple things that worked really well that I needed to do more of. So okay, so those are the 3 things. I'm sure I learned a lot more, but I will say that having a niche site that you set up and maintain over time, for me, is way preferable. It's so much easier once you get the content locked down and you have like a process to add more. You don't even have to have a team. You can go check on the site and keep it up to date, and it's way easier. It's just a few hours a week versus a services business, which, I mean, you can, probably one of the fastest ways to start making money online is to run like an SEO type service. Of course, you have to have the chops to be able to do it. In most cases, you really can't just outsource like each one of the things if you don't have like an understanding of how to actually do it. There's too many areas to make a mistake. People will tell you that you could outsource like everything, but not until you understand how to do it yourself. So, okay. So on to the questions. I'm only going to answer a few today. I'm actually doing a podcast interview with Dom over at Human Proof Design. So if you haven't checked out the podcast, I actually have 2 episodes over there. So I think you could just Google them or whatever and you could find it. But if you have a chance to check it out, I talk about like keyword golden ratio, scaling sites and stuff like that. Not 100% sure what I'm going to talk about today, but I can't stay on for too long. I got to talk to Dom. So David clarified his question. He asked if I've ever tried out a WordPress management service. No, I haven't. No. And David says, what do I think about sites that allow you to pay for a post on their site? I think I generally try to avoid those. The problem is there's a couple things, and I know David, you're in the course, so we're gonna talk about it at some point. But there's so many people pitching like guest posts right now that the bloggers are realizing that they have some leverage, so they're asking for sponsorship. They're asking for money. So I think there can be, like, if you do a little bit of that, I think it could be okay. I think you really have to watch out for sites that have almost all posts that are somehow sponsored, and maybe it says like collaborative post or sponsored post or something like that. And I think if you have a small percentage of those, like under 25%, it's probably okay. And I would try to avoid them if possible, but I think we're coming to a point where bloggers are getting so many pitches that it's going to be sort of standard that they're going to ask for some sort of sponsorship. So you're in the course. When you get to unit 6, you'll see, we talk about a lot more touch points. And if you do that, you probably can work your way through it, or end up posting on sites which don't usually allow guest posts or sponsorships, and then you'll be in good shape then. So Danish says, how much do you earn on a monthly basis on average? Well, I don't tell anybody that. So I do pretty well. I make more than I did when I had a corporate job from Amazon sites, which I think that may be more like what you're asking. Like a few sites that I talk about, or actually there's one site that I talk about on the site, and you can see some income reports on that. Over the last year, it's making about like $5,000 to $6,000 per month. So I really wish we didn't get that commission rate change a while back. That dropped my revenue quite a bit. So, but Danish, if you go check out, I think I have like summer, fall, and winter updates. If you look at those, you can get an idea. I will mention, since you're asking about money, I just sold a site with a partner of mine for $235,000. So that was really good. That was like a month ago or so. Sarah asks, what if you didn't want to scale and you were happy keeping it small? Is this something a solo practitioner could market on Upwork and be successful? Yeah, so yeah, I mean, if I enjoyed the work, then yeah, I think I probably could have, kept it up. And I think for sure, I mean, if you have the ability to do it, then I think you can make money. I have an email list with people that are interested in hiring me for guest posting, and there's a few hundred people on there. And whenever I emailed it out, I actually had like I would email it out and say I have an opening for 1 or 2 spots, and it usually worked out pretty well. Upwork could be a good route to go. You probably would need, some reviews. You would need like some positive I guess, feedback on your profile and like stuff to showcase. But Sarah, I mean, I think it's totally like a viable like thing to get links. The interesting part is there's a huge range. Like some people, like they won't pay more than like $5 for a guest post. They have no value in it. And then there's other people that see it as hugely valuable and they'll pay $400 or $500 for a guest post if it's on a high enough authority site. And you know, the trick is to find the people that are, you know, that actually treat it with value and like respect the work that you're doing, and they don't treat it as a commodity that they could just go out and, you know, go to Fiverr, for example, and just buy some backlinks, you know. So, okay. Good question, Sarah. Also a student, so if you want to follow up with me later, then feel free to. Any last questions before we finish up here? Any last questions? Yeah, and Nick says, Nick's trying to keep me honest here, and he says sign up for Doug's email list too. So yeah, if you happen to, actually, let me ask this question. If there's like 15 people on here right now, so how many people are watching this right now that are not already signed up for my email list? If you're not signed up, let me know. I usually have the feeling that there's like not, I mean, there's not that many people on here, so I assume most of the people that are actually watching are on my email list. So Nick, I like what you're thinking though. I mean, people could watch this at any time, and you know, that's something Nick and I are working on a little bit here. So, okay. Any last questions? And let me know if you're if you are not on the email list. If you're not on the email list, tell me, and then go sign up. It's nichesiteproject.com. Yeah, and while, you know, Nick, while you're listening, I got your email, by the way. I got to check that out. But I was going to say, I definitely have a plan for what I want to do with some of these videos. I see, you know, over time, I'm developing exactly like what I think is working better. And I have some good ideas, so I'll email you back. And I think I'll be able to do this and hopefully, you know, get the email subscribers. That is the goal. You are right. All right, cool. I didn't see any more questions. So just a quick reminder, if you didn't click the like button, then please click the like button. And Danish. Thanks, Leo. And Danish asked one last question that will be nearly impossible to answer, but how much do you invest on a single niche site? As much as it takes, right? So that's a kind of a vague-ish question, but I'll assume that you mean like launching a site. So if you're launching a site, say within the first 6 months, if you're outsourcing content as well, you'll probably spend between like $600 and $1,000, including the like hosting package, themes, content, like basically everything, $600 to $1,000 within the first 6 months or so. If you're on the tightest budget, you could probably do it for like $150. And the sky's the limit, right? You can spend as much as you want. And cool. So Sarah Woot, of course, is on the email list. And then Ben83 asks a Q&A question. So I'm not going to answer that today, but I'll answer it later this week. So please tune in, and I will answer that for you. The question is actually 2 pages ranking for the same keyword. What should I do? And I will tell you that in the Q&A session sometime soon. So thanks, people. We'll see you tomorrow. Actually, we'll see you tomorrow.